At 11:46 p.m. in suburban Texas, a 32-year-old nurse sits in her car outside a grocery store staring at her banking app before driving home. She makes decent money, around $84,000 a year. She works overtime. She pays her bills mostly on time. From the outside, her life looks stable, but tonight she feels trapped. Her credit cards are carrying balances again. Her car payment feels heavier every month. Student loans still exist, and despite working harder than ever, she somehow feels financially smaller than she did 5 years ago. This is the emotional reality of debt in modern America, not just numbers on a screen, pressure, exhaustion, quiet panic. Most Americans do not wake up wanting debt. They slide into it slowly through a culture that normalizes borrowing as a lifestyle instead of treating it as a financial tool. That is the real psychology behind American debt. Debt in America is rarely sold as danger. It is sold as identity, convenience, status, relief, and even self-worth. A luxury car is not marketed as a loan. It is marketed as success. A credit card is not sold as future obligation. It is sold as freedom and rewards. Buy now, pay later is not presented as debt. It is presented as flexibility. That framing matters because human beings make emotional decisions long before they make mathematical ones. And America has built an entire consumer economy around emotionally frictionless spending. Swipe now, feel good immediately, worry later. That is the system millions of people live inside every day. The dangerous part is how normal it all feels. Debt no longer looks like financial emergency to many Americans. It looks like adulthood. Car payments are normal. Student loans are normal. Monthly installments are normal. Carrying balances is normal. Financing vacations is becoming normal. And once debt becomes psychologically normal, people stop questioning how much of their future income is already spoken for before it even arrives. That is where financial pressure quietly begins. Because debt is not just about owing money, it is about losing flexibility, losing breathing room, losing the ability to make decisions without financial fear attached to them. And before we break down exactly why Americans become psychologically dependent on debt and how the system quietly encourages it, hit like, subscribe, and follow Andrew Finance because this channel is built for people who want to understand the emotional side of money, not just the numbers. Debt is not only a financial issue in America, it is a behavioral system shaping how millions of people think, spend, and live every single day.
The reason debt becomes so psychologically powerful in America is because it solves emotional problems immediately while hiding financial consequences in the future. That is the trap. Human beings naturally prioritize short-term relief over long-term pain, especially when stress is involved. And modern American consumer culture understands that perfectly. A person feels exhausted after work, emotionally drained, financially frustrated, and mentally overwhelmed. Then comes an easy solution. Swipe the card, finance the purchase, split the payment, upgrade now. The emotional reward happens instantly, while the financial cost gets delayed into the future. That delay is what makes debt so addictive psychologically. The brain feels the pleasure now and pushes the pain into a later version of life that feels distant and abstract. This is why so many Americans do not realize how financially trapped they are until their monthly obligations become impossible to ignore. Debt builds quietly because emotional spending feels small in isolated moments. A new phone here, furniture financing there, weekend spending to feel better. Small upgrades that individually seem manageable, but collectively start consuming future income before it even arrives. That is how people making good salaries still end up financially stressed. The issue is not always income, it is emotional spending layered on top of normalized borrowing. America also ties spending deeply to identity. People are constantly shown lifestyles designed to make them feel behind. Bigger homes, better cars, luxury experiences, expensive self-care. Social media intensifies this pressure by turning consumption into public performance. Many Americans are no longer just buying things for utility. They're buying emotional validation, status, and temporary feelings of progress. Debt becomes the bridge, allowing people to emotionally experience lifestyles their cash flow cannot truly support. That is why debt often survives even when people intellectually understand it is hurting them. The spending is not only financial, it is psychological. It temporarily reduces insecurity, boredom, stress, or social comparison. But the relief never lasts long, and when the emotional high fades, the payment remains. Then the cycle repeats again. More stress, more spending, more borrowing. This is why debt in America behaves less like a simple math problem and more like a behavioral loop. People are not only financing purchases, many are financing emotional relief in a society constantly encouraging them to consume as a form of identity and comfort.
Another reason debt controls so many Americans psychologically is because it changes how people think about time and survival. Once monthly obligations become too high, people stop making long-term decisions and start making emergency decisions. That shift is dangerous because survival thinking shrinks financial vision. A person with heavy debt often cannot think clearly about investing, building wealth, or future planning because their brain is focused on immediate pressure. Rent is due, credit card minimums are due, car payments are due. The paycheck already has too many jobs before it even arrives. This creates a constant low-level anxiety that millions of Americans quietly carry every day. And over time, that pressure changes behavior. People stay in jobs they hate because they cannot risk missing payments. They avoid career changes because instability feels terrifying. They stop taking healthy financial risks because debt already owns too much of their future. That is one of the hidden psychological costs of debt. It reduces freedom long before it destroys finances completely. A 40-year-old office worker in Illinois may technically earn 6 figures, but if most of that income is already committed to loans, mortgages, and consumer debt, his life becomes financially fragile despite looking successful from the outside. That is the illusion many Americans are trapped inside: high income without flexibility. Modern debt culture also creates emotional numbness over time. When people feel financially overwhelmed for years, they often stop emotionally reacting to debt entirely. Large balances become psychologically normalized, minimum payments become routine, financial stress becomes part of identity. This is why many people continue borrowing even when they know the cycle is damaging them. The brain adapts to pressure, and once pressure becomes familiar, unhealthy financial behavior starts feeling emotionally ordinary. This is what makes debt so difficult to escape. It is not just a numbers problem, it is a behavioral environment people slowly adapt to. America rewards consumption constantly while punishing patience quietly. Delayed gratification feels boring, responsible spending feels invisible. Meanwhile, financed lifestyles receive social attention and validation immediately. That creates a culture where looking financially successful often matters more than actually being financially secure, and debt becomes the invisible engine powering that illusion. The result is millions of people living inside financial structures that appear stable externally while creating anxiety, dependency, and emotional exhaustion internally every single month.
The way out of debt psychologically is not just balances down. It is changing your relationship with consumption, identity, and financial control itself. That is the part most Americans never get taught. Debt loses power when people stop using spending as emotional relief and start using money intentionally. This does not mean becoming miserable, extreme, or obsessed with saving every dollar. It means understanding what debt actually costs beyond interest.
Every payment represents future time already sold. Every unnecessary obligation reduces flexibility. Every financed lifestyle decision quietly limits future choices. Once people truly understand that emotionally, their spending behavior starts changing naturally. A 37-year-old couple in Arizona does not escape debt because they suddenly become rich. They escape because they finally realize their entire financial life has been built around maintaining appearances instead of building stability. They downsize expenses, stop emotionally shopping, cut unnecessary obligations, and redirect money toward freedom instead of image. That is when the psychological shift happens. Debt stops feeling normal and starts feeling expensive emotionally, not just financially. This is why the most powerful debt payoff stories are rarely about math alone. They are about identity change. People stop seeing consumption as proof of success. They stop needing external validation through spending. They stop treating every stressful week like a reason to buy relief. And once that emotional dependency weakens, financial progress speeds up dramatically. Because the truth is, most Americans are not trapped only by interest rates. They are trapped by financial habits tied to emotion, stress, comparison, and social pressure. The numbers matter, but the psychology underneath the numbers matters even more. Richer households often understand this better. They use debt strategically for assets while avoiding debt tied purely to lifestyle inflation. The average household often does the opposite, borrowing heavily for things that lose value while sacrificing long-term flexibility. That difference compounds for decades. Debt itself is not always evil, but unconscious debt is dangerous because it quietly controls decisions, relationships, careers, and emotional health over time. If this changed how you think about debt in America, like, subscribe, and follow Andrew Finance for more real-world money psychology, smarter financial thinking, and practical strategies designed for people who want to stop living under financial pressure and start rebuilding real control over their future.